She designed Barbie dolls for Mattel and worked at Disney Feature Animation on such films as Moana, Wreck-It Ralph 2, Frozen 2, Raya and the Last Dragon, and Encanto. She is now currently the head of costume design at Skydance Animation, so please give a warm welcome to one of the hardest working women I know, Neysa Bové.
Thank you, guys.
Did you have trouble, or was there any trouble transitioning from like kind of your fashion design background in animation, like in terms of kind of bridging those together?
I mean, I would say yes. You know, to be frank, you draw a certain way where you work, you know, and especially at Mattel, we did, you know, the 9 heads for Barbie. That's how we drew. In animation, they're not 9 heads, you know, they worked differently. If you're dressing a cat, how tall is that cat? You know, you know, on Zootopia, all different animals you would work with. You don't just work with humans, you know, you work with creatures too. On Wandla, you know, I dressed aliens, you know, many types of aliens, and then some humans. So you change your style per production.
Yes.
So for example, Wandla, you know, is a little bit more realistic than, let's say, I don't know, The Incredibles or Luca, you know,
yes,
where they have a more of a caricature take. And that's when you apply that taste or that particular look that will apply to your costume too. So if you're going more realistic, not only the textures, but maybe the proportions can get a little bit more realistic. You know, on Moana, everything was caricatured. So if I threw some shells on her dress or whatnot, you know, I'd make them nice and chunky and fat. You know, that was like how we would describe, like chunk it up or, you know, make it a little bit bigger, you know. And frankly, the art director of characters really helped me with that, you know, because he was drawing Maui and he'd say, you know, Neysa, the design language on this film is everything's chunky, and it's that 80-20 rule, where 80% of anything, a seashell, a palm tree, you know, a leaf, everything was 80-20. So for example, Moana's top is 20% of the design, and then 80% is the skirt. So it's about those proportions, and you just adapt to that in each production.
When you worked on films like Moana and Encanto, can you share any of the behind the scenes challenges that you faced just working on this and kind of learning how to put that process?
Yeah, I mean, I say Isabella was the biggest challenge. You know, we had this character, and again, like the interaction of a character's body with fabric is the biggest challenge in animation, you know, because you have basically, you know, these two things that are touching each other that don't want to touch each other, you know, and you're telling the computer like, okay, it should drape like this here, you know, and Isabella is hanging upside down on a vine as she's doing, you know, not acrobatics, but, you know, doing her beautiful like aerial ballet, you know, as she's going down with this dress, you know. Right. They were freaked out by that, you know, they're like, how are we going to do that? So a lot of reference materials are super helpful, you know, that I look in live action of like, or even runway. I pulled so many runway images of women just walking, you know, a lot from Rodarte, because I was like, that's the silk that I want, or you, or whatever, the organza. And so they saw how it behaved, and then we looked at, you know, videos of like people hanging upside down. How would that drape down? And they figured it out, you know. Yeah. But another one was the 3D-dimensional objects on that skirt, which were all the flowers that she had. Again, it's a lot of IPing, which is called interpenetrating, right? So what happens is you have a mesh, which is, let's say it's the skirt, and you put these flowers on it. The computer wants to just mush it all together. So you have to go in and art direct each fold, each flower, so they fall perfectly. And again, so that's why we can only get one outfit, let's say, with something, because you're spending all this time doing that, you know?